After a few days, Mr. Tawfik held a book signing ceremony in his house, and it was very popular. The next morning, it was a disaster. We woke up to the smell of flames coming from Mr. Tawfik's office. We ran towards him, but it was too late. Hello, my name is Tala, and I am 27 years old. I will tell you a strange story that happened to me while I was working as a maid in the house of the famous writer Mr. Tawfik. Mr. Taufik was a writer and novelist. He brought him to the house and asked me to take care of him. The boy was very sad and cried a lot most of the time. Mr. Taufik sat with him one day and asked him, "What's wrong, my son? Why are you so sad?" The child was silent for a long time and did not answer. Mr. Taufik repeated his question once, twice, and 3 times until the boy responded to him and told him his story. He told him that his parents had abandoned him and thrown him away. I was about to leave, but Tala stopped me. "The boy, don't let him leave his room and take care of him." I did what he asked of me, and Mr. Tawfik remained busy writing all day. In the morning, Mr. Tawfik said to me with joy and happiness, "Congratulations." To me, Tala, I have just finished my book. I said, "Congratulations." What is the name of this book, The Sad Boy? I was surprised by the title and said to myself, could it be that Mr. Tawfik used the boy's story for commercial purposes? But what does it have to do with me? This is his business. I said to him, "Wow, a wonderful title that will undoubtedly be widely popular. Thank you for supporting me. I will go to the publishing and printing house to put a copy there. And do not forget what I told you. Do not neglect the boy, he is in your hands. Rest assured, sir." After a few days, Mr. Tawfik held a book signing ceremony in his house. It was very popular indeed. The next morning, the disaster occurred. We woke up to the smell of flames coming from Mr. Tawfik's office. We ran towards him, but it was too late. The fire burned everything and left nothing behind. It spread to the rest of the rooms. I carried the boy and we all ran out of the house. The fire engine came and put out the fire that turned the house into rubble. After we rested, Mr. Tawfik remembered the publishing and printing house a little while ago, so he called them to leave him some copies of his book. Then the owner of the phone. "What are you saying? How did this happen? It's not reasonable." He looked at me, then at the boy, and lowered his head. I asked him, "What's wrong, sir?" He said in despair, "There was a terrible fire in the printing house that was responsible for publishing my book." I was shocked by the news and looked at the boy and said to him, "You are a harbinger of bad things or a curse that has befallen us." Mr. Tawfik and I moved to live in a new apartment, but the boy disappeared and never returned, and we did not find a trace of him after the fire that occurred in the house. A few days later, the city newspaper wrote about this matter and about the occurrence of the 2 incidents, and linked the incident to the book. The surprise was the next morning, the newspaper headquarters was completely burned down. We were surprised to hear the news, and Mr. Tawfik seemed nervous. I told him, "I am afraid, sir." He said, "What is it, Tala?" "Why are you afraid? This boy is cursed, and everyone who wrote about him has suffered a calamity." He said angrily, "Woe to you! What are you saying? Do you believe in superstitions? They are just random incidents, sir. Why don't you return the copies of the books that were sold so that nothing bad happens to the rest of the customers?" He rebuked me and said sharply, "Don't let me hear this talk again. Where can I get them the money to return it to them?" Days passed and the news spread like wildfire all over the place. While we were sitting, we heard a loud knock at the door of our apartment and the voice of a woman screaming, "Help! Help!" We ran towards the sound, and it was the owner of the apartment opposite asking for help because her house was on fire. We called the fire department, and Mr. Tawfik was surprised by the matter and said, "It must have been planned. This cannot have happened by chance." The lady said, "What coincidence do you mean?" "All of this is because of your cursed book." He looked at him, denying it. "What does my book have to do with the matter?" "You forgot me. I bought the book The Cursed Boy from you last week, and you signed it for me. I didn't remember you. Excuse me, madam. Yes, I was reading the novel and put it on the bed and headed towards the kitchen, and a fire broke out of nowhere in my bedroom. Mr. Torfik was silent and remained stunned in shock. Here is another house burned because of the curse of the book. The residents agreed to burn all the copies. They met in the city square and lit a huge fire. They threw every copy of the Sad Boys book into it. Mr. Torfik was upset by the matter and cried bitterly. What happened to you people? Why did you rush? Why all this ignorance? It is impossible for a book to burn a house. The lady shouted, If what you say in every place it entered, give it to him that they are fabricated incidents and leave that to you, she replied, laughing. What, after all, our houses burn? Mr. Torfik's reputation worsened greatly after the incident, and he stopped writing since then and even left the city to a country house. As for me, I was believing that the boy is not an ordinary person, since the master brought him home, withdrawn and crying a lot. I am sure that the cause of the fires is the trade in the diamonds and other packages. But where did the boy disappear to? Anyway, God has relieved us of him and his books. As for me, I returned to my father's house in the neighbouring city to live with my mother and father until I find a new job. One evening, my father knocked on the door and opened it. He did not find anyone, but he found a postal package in front of the door. My father took it to his room and opened it. It was a book entitled The Sad Boy, Music. My father took the book and sat reading it. My mother said to him, What's wrong, man? Don't you want to sleep? It's getting late. He said to her, No, I like this book and I can't sleep without finishing it. When I returned, I entered and found my father sleeping on the chair, holding a book in his hand. When I saw him, I said to myself, Poor you, father. I took the book from his hand and put it on the table. I covered my father because I did not want to wake him up and spoil his sleep. Then, as soon as I took a few steps, I shouted, It's the book! I turned towards the book that my father was reading, and behold, the cursed book, so I quickly took it and burned it. My father woke up because of the scream and said, My daughter, have you returned? What are you doing? Why are you burning the book? This book is cursed, my father, and its writer is the man who I used to work for him. What? I read the book, and there is nothing in it that calls for horror or anxiety because it is just a fictional story. I said, No, my father, it is a true story. Behind it is a curse that led to the burning of many houses. But since you read the book, give me the summary. Maybe I can save our home and search for the child who suddenly disappeared. My father answered. The story begins when a married couple went to the desert and went to the child's father to show him the way to the mysterious caves. He told them, I cannot show you the way. The place is isolated and the road is empty and scary. But they did not beg and said, The husband, please, I will pay you the amount you want. The child's father agreed and took him to the place they wanted with his son, who insisted on going. That area was forbidden. No one entered it because it was rumored that whoever entered it did not return, and no trace of him appeared. The important thing, my daughter, complete the story for you. When they approached the cave, the child's father said, This is where my mission ends. I cannot go any further. The tourist replied, You cannot. We do not know the way back. You must continue with us. We will not stay long inside, just a few pictures and we will leave. The father said, I do not think you can return if you enter. The tourist laughed and said, They are just superstitions. Do you really believe that this place is the abode of the jinn? Okay, we will add double the money we gave you and you will enter with us for only a few meters. He said, No, I do not want to. His son said to him, Let me go and do not worry about me. After much insistence, the father accepted on the condition that he not go too far inside. The child and the tourists entered, and the child's father remained outside. Inside, they found strange symbols and drawings on the wall. The tourist said, Look, man, at these drawings. I do not think they are anything but man-made. They moved a little further inside, and she could no longer hear their voices despite their closeness. The child motioned for them to return, but the tourist nodded, pushed herself forward, and there the sand moved from beneath her and swallowed her. Her husband screamed, trying to save her, from to no avail, and disappeared into the sand, and his screams were not heard. There was a sound barrier there. The child ran terrified outside, and the tourist followed him, and they left the place after returning to their home. The tourist suffered setbacks due to the loss of his wife, and the child was sick with a high fever for days until he recovered after a week, but he was no longer the same. He did not talk to anyone and remained sitting alone. The child's father was shocked by the state of their son because of the events he went through. His wife told him that he was the reason for what happened to him. "You should not have taken him with you. You are right, and I regret the idea. The tourist who was with you also died today. He died as a result of a fire that broke out in his house while he was sleeping. Yes, I know that. After a few days, the family woke up to a fire in the kitchen. They found the child in the middle of the flames, not moving. The father rushed and took him outside. Fortunately, he and his wife were able to put out the fire quickly before it spread to the rest of the rooms. The strange thing is that the child did not suffer any burns. The husband said to his wife, 'The boy's situation is strange. He was in the middle of the fire and did not suffer any burns.' 'Yes, I am afraid. This is no longer our son. I think he is a genie or possessed.' 'You are right. We almost burned because of him. We must find a solution. Any solution. I told you that this is not my son, and I feel that for the safety of the rest of the family, he must stay away from us.' 'Or what do you mean? Put him in an orphanage until he returns.' When he was in the morning, the father took him to an orphanage, but unfortunately they found it full and they could not accept him. The child sat with the father in a shelter and brought him something to eat. Then he said to him, 'Son, wait here until I bring something over there.' Then he left. The boy did not wait for hours, and his father did not see him. He kept walking until he felt tired and slept in one of the corridors until the writer Tawfik found him. I said to my father, Oh my God, it's really a very sad story." The next day, I decided to search for the child and return him to his home. I went to the police station and to the hospital. I gave them information about the boy, and if there was anything new, they should contact me. I posted ads on the walls of houses and storefronts with a picture of the child. Several weeks passed, and a phone call came in saying, "Hello, are you the owner of the ad looking for the missing child?" I said, "Yes, I am." "Did you find the child?" The caller replied, "In fact, I found him in the street and hired him in the store, but several bad things happened since he came to me, so I fired him on a very cold, rainy night." In the morning of that day, I remembered him and felt sorry for his condition. I searched for him and found him dead in front of the garbage behind the store. I told him, "You are merciless. How did you allow yourself to send an innocent child to the street? Anyway, I called you to tell you to stop searching for him. Oh, I forgot. He left a book behind him. If you need it, come and get it." I smiled slyly and said to him, "You will need it more than me." I hung up on him. His face tasted what he gave the child. I wished that his place would burn down completely. I think that has already happened. This is the whole story. And you, my friends, please do not approach places that are forbidden to enter. Some things, if they appear to you, will upset you, and empty and deserted places.